So good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Lanzo Luconi. I am the founder and director of the Costa Rica Piano Festival. And I'd like to welcome you all to our very last episode of Pedagogy Talks with none other than Irina Gorin. Irina, welcome and thank you for coming again.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so this week we have a very interesting topic. Before we get into it, I want to remind everybody that our deadlines are coming up this week and we're starting the festival next week. And we have a great variety of programs for all interests and different levels. Remember also the online competition is happening, and the last day to submit your recording is on Wednesday. So make sure you get on it. And if you have any questions, you can obviously contact me or contact contact us through the website. For everyone else, we're gonna ask everyone to please mute their mics, and we're gonna have a moment in the end where you can ask questions and you can share stories or make comments. So Irina, today we're gonna talk about how to set up a proper teaching studio and what this entails and all the preparation that this takes. And this is something that everyone can learn from, parents and students themselves, and of course, recently graduated, people who recently graduated, or even people with experience, teachers with experience that maybe can grab some ideas. And this is where, of course, our community is useful to keep improving. So Irina, tell us first how you started, because this is something that is very interesting to most people, I think, especially people that have been following you and know you for a long time. How did you get started? Because you've had so many different experiences. You lived in different places around the world. So how did you become so good at establishing a music studio or a teaching business?
It's a very long story. It's about 26 years long. That's how long I've been in America. But when I first moved, of course, I didn't have any money, and I didn't have a piano. We lived in a very small apartment, but I couldn't think about anything else but teaching piano. So I've been and I didn't have any friends actually in Indianapolis, so it was really hard for me to start. I found out about a very interesting thing called garage sales. That's where I got all my furniture and clothes, and once on garage sale I saw a very old piano that was probably 40-50 years old for a couple $100, and I immediately bought it. It was very bad piano, but as soon as we brought it to my apartment, and my husband is a piano technician, so he a little bit fixed here and there whatever he could, and I started playing in just because I had few months without practicing. I just rushed to it and started playing, and in about 5 minutes I got a knock on the door. It was my neighbor from underneath asking if I'm giving piano lessons.
What a good way to
That's how I
start.
got my
Yeah.
first friend, and that's how my business started. They were very first ones. They let know their friends, and um, then I moved to other apartment, and one of my newer students, they just moved from Japan, and because the company moved them from Japan and brought their and offered them to buy a good piano for their kids to study, they still wanted to bring their old piano from there. So they had this money, and they told me they want their kids to have lessons on a good piano. And next day they went to the store and bought for me beautiful Yamaha which I still.
Wow.
So that was amazing experience for me. I didn't expect. I could, in my wildest dream, I couldn't even think about it. And only about 10 years later, when we already had our house, um, my late father and my husband, they used the basement to separate my studio from the house. That's where I live. And I put a lot of time and effort to decorate it, to make it welcoming and engaging, and bring all the equipment here. I bought two other pianos and tons of books. So it takes time. New business, especially in a new place or even new country, is extremely hard to start. But if you really want something, you can always get what you want.
Absolutely. Well, what an interesting story. And I know, I mean, if we had time, we would go more into details. But I have a few few questions because you know, everybody's circumstances are different, and like you mentioned, your circumstance in a lot of ways was very difficult, but you had a lot of advantages. And so, for example, your husband being a piano technician is already uh, a good advantage here to have when you're setting up your studio, right? Um, and also the fact that you were gifted a good piano to teach on, because this is one of the most difficult things sometimes for teachers, is actually acquiring a quality instrument where they can teach and
Absolutely.
they can practice themselves. So I remember, like, for me it was quite difficult because I didn't have the money, and I lived also in an apartment, and getting like a grand piano or even like a smaller vertical piano was not within my reach just yet, as you know, when you first start moving. But you're right, it takes time. It took me a little bit of time to, well, start saving up a little bit of money, start talking to people, make you have to be flexible with your circumstance, you know. You have to be able to adapt to things, understand that it's not going to be that way all the time. um, and you know, it comes to a point where you can start taking a little bit more risk, making the investments, and then actually open up a proper piano studio or a teaching studio. If so, when you started, what were some of the things that, or maybe what were some of the ideas that you had that in hindsight now you were like, oh God, maybe that was not like the best thing to do, or maybe that's was definitely the right decision that I made? What are some of the um, those elements that are like the do's and the don'ts when you start your teaching studio?
You know, I had a very different background, and I wasn't familiar with private educational system until I moved to USA. And before I moved, I already worked for 13 years in music school in Ukraine. So I didn't have to worry about business side at all. I was receiving my salary once a month and didn't care about schedule or uh, payments or anything. So these things are, it was a huge learning curve for me, not even talking about language barrier. For the first couple of years, I was so scared of each lesson because I was afraid I will not understand what student asks me.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, but these and also for the first, I would say, 10 years, I would travel to students' homes as well because I couldn't really choose or make requests. So, yeah, it was hard to get used to establish the routine of payment. Some parents would forget to bring their checkbook or forgot that they didn't pay the last time. So, uh, with time, with talking to other teachers, I've learned a lot of things. So first, very important thing is to have a really good policy
Mm,
where you list all your expectations from the families, because otherwise you put yourself in a position where you might even get sued if you don't list it in your policy. So it's really important to get educated about what needs to be in the policy, the logistics, the scheduling, the makeup lessons, payments, all these things. That's the first thing. Another, uh, how I found students, a lot of teachers,
mm,
especially those who have to move, they ask, how do I get more students? And this is also very interesting thing. I didn't plan it, it just happened. But now I can tell, I wish I knew it earlier and started earlier. But uh, my main stream of students came since I started posting videos on YouTube
mm,
and then created my own website. So these two are very important. If you want to establish a serious studio with devoted parents and serious students, uh, they need to see your standards. They need to know your expectations. Um, that's why when they see your website with you telling about yourself, about your expectations, with your policy, with videos from YouTube, from your recitals, that already creates a certain um, attitude and expectations from parents.
mm. Well,
That
you gotta build the trust too. They gotta know that you're gonna deliver what they're looking for, and you're able to provide, right, the educational value that they're looking for.
absolutely, yes, it's very, very important. So they need to see results of your work too. So if you do studio recitals, record them on videos and post them on YouTube. People are searching YouTube all the time. I have like 11,000 subscribers, and every video brings new and more people inquiring about piano lessons and methods. And I actually never ever advertised myself. I never ever paid money for any kind of advertisement or marketing. It's all YouTube, Facebook, and website.
So the online presence, you'd say it
Yes,
was the main factor at the beginning, because you took this very seriously from the beginning, right? It's not like, well, of course there's a period of time, like, so everyone has to understand that nobody starts with 11,000 followers on social media platform. Nobody starts with a waiting list, on their studio. You have to build up to get to that level. um, and it's the small things, right? Small things like you said, you don't necessarily need to spend a ton of money on advertising. It could be a strategy. Some people do it, and it works, right? We know different things can work from different people, but there are things that universally can help everybody. Like you said, the online presence, having a social media, a YouTube channel, a website, and start documenting a lot of what you do, even at the smallest scale, right? So you can post it there and people can see what you're about. Whether if you don't have any content yet of your own students, you can start with your own content yourself. And then maybe you get one student, and then you make that student the best he or she can be. And then you document that, right? And then you start building upon that. That's at least how I see the process. So you can gather all this information, all this content, and then you can do things like you're doing and many other very successful teachers are doing. um,
yes, absolutely.
and what would you say are some of the uh, obstacles that we're going to run into to be prepared for?
One of the main obstacle is communication with parents. And again, as I said, very specific, clear policy will help, but without that trust and well-established communication with parents, we cannot expect a smooth process. Parents have to trust. They cannot tell you what to do and how to teach. And they have to respect you as a teacher and believe that their child's interest is your best interest too. So that's very important. Um, some of the obstacles I know teachers have is paying rent for the studio. Sometimes rent is very expensive, or renting equipment. I was lucky not to have to do it, as my studio is in my home and it's completely separated from my family, so that was very good. But unfortunately, I don't know what I would do if I had to rent a building or a suite. I really can't help with that. I always either travel to my students' houses, and for the past 15 years, I'm working in my studio. Um, Other obstacles, I don't even know. I mean, studio has to be very welcoming and engaging. It has to have good quality instruments. Again, it all comes to finances, but take one step at a time. Set a goal and go towards that goal. Right now in my studio, I have two instruments, grand and upright. As you see behind me, I have a huge piano library. I put a lot of thought and time in decorating and using musical theme for studio, looking like a music studio for this room. It has to have uh, an area, if it's not possible to have a waiting room, at least an area where the parents can sit comfortably and watch the lesson. It has to have a restroom. It has to have good ventilation system and lighting. So there is a lot of things that have to come to make sure the teacher and the student, the family, feel comfortable. Not too cold, not too hot. You know, it has to have some fresh air in between the students. To I like to diffuse some essential oils because they make us you know, different oils work for different things. So I might
more calming effect.
Calming or brain stimulating. I use different days, different oils. So um, in my studio, I have a sound recording equipment, so I can record students when they master the piece, and by the end of the year, I make a CD with all the pieces they learned.
That's very nice. That's very cool.
Yes, but again, it's really small steps to get to certain goals. Of course, uh, if I had my house when I just started and the room and all the books, I might be farther than where I am right now, but I'm always happy with what I have at the moment. And I always trying to go a little bit farther.
I think that's, you make a very important point, and it's just to be grateful with what you have at the moment, because you can at least do something, right? That gratitude, I think if you start from there, it's much easier to build up, because then you just need time, but the effort and the attitude is there. Plus, you also mentioned that it's important to have good quality equipment, but you don't need to be like super fancy about everything, right? You don't need like the ultimate, you don't need a Steinway D in your in your studio. You
Yeah,
don't need
I
super
tried. I
expensive
did.
recording equipment. You don't need, 35 cameras, and you don't need, you know, uh, you know, uh, 200 square feet of room. It's like you just need a space that is going to allow you and the student to feel comfortable enough to just learn and just forget about the world for a second and just focus on the music and on learning.
Another couple things that are important if you want to teach from your own studio is to have your certificates, um, your own awards being displayed either on the shelves or on the walls, because for parents it plays a big role. As well as I always cherish pictures of my students, pictures from the recitals. I have a board where all my graduates have their own little plate, and it says which year they graduated and which college they went and which profession they chose. So it's almost full. It's like 24 little plates on that board, and
It's
it's
like you're
almost
building
full right
a
now.
little family there. It's that you make each student feel very special. And I also that's a huge takeaway from this conversation. It's whatever it is and wherever you are in the process, because you could always be much worse, and you can always be better. Like, I'm sure there's things that you want to upgrade in your studio. There's things that you want to have improve, that you want maybe better equipment. It's the process that never ends. But what your point here is the fact that you make every student feel special, regardless of the physical space. That's already,
Yeah.
you're winning at this game, at the business, and of course with each of these humans that you interact with and you learn with and you learn from as well. um, I mean, and I'm sure we could talk about this forever. There's endless details about this. And of course, if people want to know more, you can attend the webinar, which will be starting next week. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but we want to get into some questions. I know we have an audience here on Zoom, and we have some people tuning in from Facebook as well. And so we're going to open up the Q&A section right now. If you have any questions, or if you have any comments or experiences that you want to share, you can unmute your mic and share with us. While you guys are getting ready for that, I'm just going to ask one of the questions that came through our Instagram. So Irina, what do you do about pricing? How do you establish the first your fee, and how do you start, and measure, and maybe do like a little market research and establish your lesson price or fee?
Yes, it's a very hard question, and probably there is no exact answer. It all depends on the area you live in. It depends on average um, cost of the piano lessons in that area, because I know, like Lanza, you live in California and I'm in Indiana, and it probably a huge difference in prices
Probably, yeah.
for.
But then again, you said it right. I have no idea what the market is like with piano lessons in Indiana, or just in a suburb of Indiana, because it's going to be different in like downtown than in like the suburbs, or maybe like way out in the country. Uh, so you got to take into account, I guess, all the economical factors of the area that you live in.
Yes, but I never was striving to be the highest paid teacher. For example, I'll tell you, when I started teaching piano in America, I charged $5 per hour, and it was big money for me. But step by step, when you establish yourself, when um, the parents come to the local recitals and see your students being better than others, they always curious, who is this teacher? Why don't we call and inquire about lessons for our younger children, or we'll recommend it to our friends. And then, of course, when you have full studio, you start raising your price. It has to be a reasonable raise. I never raised more than, let's say, $2 every 2 years until I get to the point where I am right now. Of course, at this stage of my life, when I work as university professor and I don't teach regular lessons to children anymore, just giving consultation, it's a different range of price, of cost. But again, it all comes with time, with your confidence, with how much you value yourself as a teacher, with your education, with experience. So it's impossible to tell what it has to be. And of course, some teachers have group lessons, some have individual lessons. There are too many variables.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to do your homework and start. It's better to start a little bit lower and then raise a little bit than scare people away with too high of a cost
Right.
for piano.
Right. You can also get feedback from your own current students. I know, for example, when I first started, I was also, in a little bit lower than the average here in the area where I live. And then I would ask the parents, it's like, how do you feel about the fees? How do you feel like compared to what they know? Because a lot of parents also know what other teachers are charging. So you can get a lot of feedback, especially from those parents that you have a bond with, you have a certain level of trust with. You can ask them. You can ask some of your older students too. I mean, there's different ways to get the feedback.
And also, music stores have some studios. You can inquire there what they charge.
Mm-hmm.
I just remembered a very funny story when I was much younger and just started teaching and charged very low price. One of my parents came to me and said, I feel like we have to pay you more.
See, there you go. There you go. See?
Paid me like $5 more than everyone else. So I thought, why I should probably get to this point with all other students.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big for me because I was so scared to raise even $1. But yeah.
See, there you see. Yeah, good. All right. Does anyone have any questions, or they want to share any experiences? You can unmute your mic, or you can just write it in the chat. Give a minute. Anybody? Because otherwise we're gonna end it here then, because it's already been quite a bit of time, and I don't want to take any more of your time, Irina. I know you're very, very busy, and I'm very busy right now too, with the festival coming up next week. So I want to take this time, well, first to thank you, Irina, and thank you everybody who came and joined here on Zoom and on Facebook.
Thank you.
And yeah, this whole series has been incredibly inspiring. I've learned so much just by having these little conversations. So I can't wait for next week to get started with an actual webinar and spend hours at a time with you. And so a quick reminder to everyone. Who's writing? Oh, Jackie's writing. Million thanks to Lanzo and Irina for all these wonderful pedagogy sessions. Thank you, Jackie, for joining us. Jackie has been joining us, I think, almost every week, if I can remember correctly. And for all the episodes, she's been joining for improvisation, and she's been joining for pedagogy as well. So she's a rock star. Shout out to Jackie. And so anyways, our deadlines are coming up this week. So if you want to join, if you find these talks interesting, if you want to know more, if you want to dive deep into the world of pedagogy, how to we're going to talk about technique. We're going to talk about setting up a studio. We're going to talk about repertoire and what skills to build, the communication with the students, all that and more. All the details are on our website. It's CostaRicaPianoFestival.com. And by the way, so the deadline is this week, but this is a special offer. If anybody today wants to join, I will give them a special discount. I will give them $100 off if they sign up today. So they have to contact me directly, and because we're closing this week. I think Wednesday is going to be the last day. So what else? I think we are, I have a lot of messages here from Facebook. Shout out to everyone watching us on Facebook. And well, if you want to keep following us on social media for all these new content and all the new information and updates, please do so. We are on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. And well, I think we're gonna leave it here. I can't wait for next week. Irina, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. And I hope to see you next week for those of you who are doing the webinar or the competition or any of the programs of the festival. Irina, thank you so much. This has been an amazing experience. Maybe you'll hear a little bit more from us in the future. Maybe this will turn into something. Oh, you can, by the way, you can also check Irina's YouTube channel. She's going to be posting the entire talks, the entire series. So go check her out, and she has another whole myriad of videos there. So bye everyone. Thank you so much. Pura vida. And
Bye.
see you next week.